It started with a sound no one else would have heard, a soft metallic click of a hotel room lock, followed by the muffled hum of an elevator descending into silence. In the still night air outside the Willowcrest Inn, the only light came from the flickering red sign above the lobby. 11:57 p.m. He shouldn't have still been there. To everyone else, Michael Rayner was a man who had everything: a comfortable home in the suburbs, a beautiful wife, 2 kids, and a solid reputation as a reliable project manager at a construction firm. But to the woman waiting upstairs in room 314, he was someone entirely different, someone promising, someone thrilling, someone dangerous, though she didn't know it yet. Michael slipped out through the side entrance like he had done countless nights before, his hand buried deep in his jacket pocket, phone already switched to silent. He'd parked his SUV 3 blocks away, not because of the cost of parking, but because secrets thrive in the spaces where no one is supposed to look. By the time he reached his quiet cul-de-sac, the house was dark. His wife, Lauren, believed he'd been working late on a site inspection. Their kids would be asleep, and Michael, with his practiced steps and careful routine, could slide right back into the role of a loving father without a hint of the life he lived after dusk. But this night wouldn't be like the others. Somewhere between the lobby camera and the side door, a shadow had followed him. Someone had been watching for weeks, not because they suspected infidelity, but because they suspected something far worse. The story would later be dissected by investigators, journalists, and late-night true crime hosts. They'd say it began in that hotel. But the truth started months before, long before Michael ever stepped foot in room 314 with her. Her name was Camille, 26, bright, impulsive, and heartbreakingly hopeful. She worked part-time as a receptionist at a dental clinic downtown, dreamed of moving to California, and thought she'd finally met the man who would make her life bigger than it had ever been. Michael had met her in the most ordinary way, at a networking event he had no business attending. She laughed easily. She didn't ask questions he didn't want to answer, and she believed every word he said. He told her he was separated, that his marriage was over and everything but paperwork, that his house wasn't a home anymore, just a shared space for his kids' sake. It was the script of a man who knew exactly what to say to keep someone orbiting around a life he would never give them. Camille never asked to meet his wife. She never asked to come to his home, and he never offered. What he did offer was a room key, room 314, a place where their world existed only between the 4 walls and the city that never noticed. But over time, that arrangement began to shift. She started leaving things behind: a pair of earrings, a charger, a toothbrush. And Michael started noticing that she wasn't just waiting in that room anymore. She was expecting, hoping. And then came the night of the text. "Can we talk? It's important." Michael had been sitting on his couch, a beer sweating in his hand, pretending to watch a late-night sports recap. His wife was asleep upstairs. The text burned on his screen, and something in his chest tightened. He told her he'd stop by the hotel after work the next day. He didn't expect what she'd show him. Camille wasn't just in love, she was pregnant. For the first time, the walls of Michael's careful double life began to tremble. Everything he'd compartmentalized, his family, his affair, his lies, was bleeding into one reality he couldn't control. And that's when his behavior changed. No more overnight stays, no more long talks, no more plans. He started slipping out faster. He stopped answering her calls after midnight. But Camille wasn't the kind of woman to disappear quietly. She started calling his office. Once, twice, then every day. She never screamed. She just waited. And then she started to follow. Not out of malice, out of desperation, out of heartbreak. And one night, she saw what she wasn't supposed to see. Michael kissing his wife on the front porch, laughing with their kids in the yard. A picture-perfect life she was never meant to be part of. That's when the story took its first dark turn, because Camille didn't leave. She moved closer. She checked into the hotel opposite his office. She started writing everything down. The dates, the times, the words he'd said. Every lie became a bullet point. Every promise became a piece of evidence in a story that was beginning to spiral far beyond his control. Michael didn't notice it first, but the staff at the Willowcrest Inn did. The night clerk saw her pacing. The maid noticed she stopped smiling. And then, one night, she didn't wait inside the hotel room. She waited in the parking lot. He walked out at 11:57 p.m., just like always. But this time, Camille stepped out of the shadows and said his name. Her voice wasn't angry. It was quiet, flat. The kind of quiet that terrifies people who know they've done something wrong. "What are we, Michael?" she asked. He froze. For a second, he thought about telling the truth. That there was no we. That there never had been. But he couldn't. Because the moment he admitted it, everything he'd built would unravel. "I told you, I just need time," he said softly, like a man reading from a rehearsed script. But Camille didn't move. She reached into her coat pocket, not for a weapon, but for something that made his stomach drop. A folded envelope. She tossed it on the hood of his car. Inside, ultrasound images. He swallowed hard, staring at the grainy black and white print. For the first time, Michael Rayner understood that the line between his secret life and his real life had been crossed. And from that moment on, someone was going to lose everything. In the weeks that followed, Camille stopped calling, stopped texting, stopped showing up. And for a brief moment, Michael thought he'd escaped the storm. Until the anonymous letter arrived at his wife's office. Inside the manila envelope were photos. Him. Her. Room 314. Date stamped. The fallout wasn't loud at first. Lauren didn't scream. She didn't throw things. She just looked at him with the kind of silence that made his knees weak. But Lauren wasn't naive. She didn't run to divorce lawyers or pack her bags. She hired a private investigator, and that PI uncovered something Michael never expected. Camille had been recording everything, every conversation, every message, every promise. She wasn't looking for revenge. She was looking for protection. She knew what men like Michael did when cornered. She knew what could happen to women like her when they became inconvenient. And so when Michael tried to quietly pay her off, Camille did something he never saw coming. She turned everything over to Lauren's lawyer. Over the next 6 months, the facade of Michael Rayner's perfect life began to collapse. Not through violence, not through death, but through quiet, surgical exposure. His job came under review for moral clause violations. His neighbors stopped waving. His wife froze joint accounts. And the hotel? That became the centerpiece of an ugly civil suit. When the media finally got a hold of the story, they didn't frame it as a scandalous affair. They called it what it was: manipulation, coercion, deception. Michael's downfall wasn't a single explosion. It was 1,000 quiet cuts, each one carved by a lie he thought no one would ever see. Camille never disappeared. She didn't need to. She didn't destroy him with rage. She destroyed him with the truth. Room 314 was gutted 6 months later. They replaced the furniture, repainted the walls, pretended the whispers of a double life never lived there. But some nights, the night clerk still swears he hears the soft click of a door at midnight, just like it all began. And for those who lived through it, this story isn't just about an affair. It's about how a single secret, left to fester in the dark, can turn a life built on comfort into a house of cards waiting to fall. If you're drawn to gripping, real-life inspired crime stories like this, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more true crime narratives that expose the shadows behind ordinary lives. This wasn't a story of death. It wasn't about violence. It was about lies, power, and the cost of living two lives.